Hi Taurus, welcome to your May 2021 Astro Update. It's Raina here. So this is your time to shine. Happy birthday for those of you who are born in May, and for those of you born in April, the same. I'm actually recording this in late April. When the sun is in your sign, you can feel a lot of revitalization. You can feel a sense that you are really aligned with the energy that is connected to Taurus. This is for Taurus sun and rising sign. And so in addition to the sun being in Taurus, at the beginning of the month, Mercury is in your sign, as is Venus, your ruler. And the 3rd, Mercury goes into Gemini. Now, what's great about this is that this is your 2nd house, but it's also the house that you rule. So there's still a connection to Taurus when planets go into Gemini, because it goes into your house of rulership, the 2nd house. Mercury in the 2nd house can put the mind on your money. Your mind is on your money. And that can, show up in different ways, whether it's just simply, considering your budget, getting paperwork together that have to do with your finances, speaking to an advisor about it, things like that. Maybe it's just like on the mental level, kind of crunching numbers about something, because if you want to buy something, the 2nd house is not only the money that you earn, but the possessions that you own. And, if you're thinking about buying something, but you don't know. Actually, on the 8th, when Venus also goes into the 2nd house, not only do we have the ruler of the 2nd house, Venus, in its own house, which is a double Venusian influence, but Venus, because it is connected to money, can give you that money to buy those things that maybe you've been thinking about. And so that might be like, even when Mercury is there, starting on the 3rd, you may be researching something that you want to buy and finding out, which is the best brand and stuff like that, the specs. Mars is in Cancer all month long. And so Cancer is a friendly angle to Taurus. It's a sextile, so it's going to be in your 3rd house. Now, the interesting thing about this is that the 3rd house is the house that Gemini rules in the universal chart. So this is going to be connected to communication issues, whether it's you wanting to share your thoughts in a very almost like, I was going to say like a warrior type of a way, a strident, what's that, like a fanatic or something like that. But, just being very active with communication. You have to, when you have Mars in the 3rd house, watch out for being aggressive with speech, because you might kind of overstep your boundaries. I don't think that a lot of Taurus people have that kind of personality trait in and of themselves, but some of you, a fair number of you, may have your natal Mercury in Gemini. So you may have a little bit of that, and you could speak before you think. And, because Mars can be very impulsive. So look out for that. The 3rd house are your siblings, as well as your neighbors. Also, in addition to siblings, extended family members. So there could be a conflict with them, or some kind of more activity with them. It is your local area, your civics, your, you might be involved with your local area for some reason more than usual. And so this is something that is happening all month long. On the 11th, you have your new moon. It's at 21 degrees of Taurus. And so this is a time to kind of set your intentions for the upcoming 12 months, even if you don't believe in this stuff. And, I think it's perfectly healthy to really question things and not just blindly accept them. So even if you think, oh, I'm not sure that is, setting intentions for the new moon is really true. I mean, this is your birthday new moon. And I mean, it's in your sign. But in addition to that, you can also always do things symbolically. I mean, you may think that it doesn't really have any special power attached to it, but you might still do it anyway because it is in most of your birthday month. And so it's always nice around your birthday to take stock in your life and to maybe have new goals that you want to reach. So that would make sense. On the 13th, we have Jupiter going into Pisces, which is very interesting because, it just seems like yesterday that Jupiter went into Aquarius, doesn't it? I mean, Jupiter has a year-long transit through one sign. For whatever reason this year, I don't think that this always happens, that Jupiter goes into a new sign 5 months later. But it has, and it's only going to be here for a few months in Pisces. It's going to go back into Aquarius when it retrogrades. But Pisces is another friendly angle to you, but from the other side, from the 11th house side. And this is the house of gaining things. So, I mean, whether we're talking about money, I mean, this could be, I didn't realize this until recently, but there can be a financial connection to the 11th house. I knew it was a house that was considered by traditional astrologers to be the luckiest house. Jupiter rules the 9th house, and Jupiter is associated with luck. I thought that the 9th house was supposed to be the luckiest house myself. The 9th house is the house of your long-range goals and your hopes and wishes. I mean, hopes and wishes are long-range goals, I guess. They're kind of like the same thing. But also the house of your social network. So whether we're talking about your friendships or any kind of groups that you belong to and organizations, Jupiter can expand these connections. And so you may be more social in the next few months than you have been in quite a while, Taurus. Now, having said that, Jupiter is going to go retrograde, I think in June. Yeah, in June, right after the summer solstice. And then go back into Aquarius eventually and stay there for the rest of the year and go back into Pisces at the very end of the year. I'm going to be doing the Jupiter into Pisces separate videos for every sign. I'm going to go into more detail about how it will affect you. I don't think I've done your sign yet, but you can check back on my channel to see if I've done it. I'll create a playlist too. On the 20th, the sun goes into Gemini, and so the sun is in that money sector as well. So how many planets do we have here? We got the sun, we got Mercury, and we have Venus. So that's quite a lot. And, this is just a more like kind of Taurian energy. It's like, you're already a sun in Taurus, and then, or even if it's your rising sign, it would be in the first house. And then in addition to that, you have the second house energy that is very, connected to who you are. So it just kind of is comfortable for you to have the sun here. On the 23rd, we have Saturn retrograding, and this is at 13 degrees of Aquarius. Now, Aquarius for Taurus is your career sector. So, there's different things that can happen with Saturn retrograding. For one thing, you may, if you have been working on something, you may be retooling it. Saturn is about discipline and about foundation. Now, if there's some kind of like thing that you've done that hasn't been done properly, you might have to redo something. But the other thing too is that Saturn can be your ambition, and your ambition is not always directed in the right way. So this is the house of goals, and you might have to really rethink where you're headed. And the 10th house is your place in the world. And sometimes these things can get distorted when a person is looking to the outer world to define them, or to validate them, is really what I meant to say, more than define. And so we can go down a completely inappropriate road for our particular path. It might be, perfect for somebody else, but not necessarily for us. And this is the time to really look at these things, because, I think about how many people, like even if you're a college student, look at what you're majoring in and say to yourself, is this really what I want to do? Or am I, trying to fulfill somebody else's dreams? Because the 10th house is also authority figures. And obviously parents are, our first authority figures. And some people are really doing things for their parents' approval. Even if they are adults, they might even be middle-aged and engaged in behavior that is really for approval-seeking behavior, is what I meant to say. So looking at that, and then being able to chart the course that works for you. And then we have a lunar eclipse. So this is a month where we're having a couple of retrogrades and lunar eclipse. So there's a lot going on in May, in the second half of the month. The first half of the month is still a good time if you have things that you want to promote, because there's a lot less going on. When you start getting into the second half, then you're nearing the Mercury retrograde, which is happening at the end. I'm going to talk about that in a second. But as always, do what feels right inside of yourself. Don't just go by astrological transits. This lunar eclipse on May 26th is at 5 degrees of Sagittarius. For Taurians, this is your 8th house. And so this is a very powerful eclipse. Now, I will say that for some of you, I don't want to give exact, I'll say like early Taurians, this will be in your 8th house. But for a lot of you, this may actually be in your 7th house of committed partnership. And I would say for those people, if you have a relationship that is rocky, you may expect some kind of disclosure or reveal. In cases where it is indicated, maybe you're going to part ways with someone. But I'm saying this as a good thing because I'm talking about people that are not getting along. It's like grace, because for a Taurus person, even if you're not getting along with someone, it's not uncommon, I think, for Taurians to kind of hold on to these relationships that aren't working because it feels familiar, which makes it feel safe. For some of you, you may take the plunge in marriage or committed partnership. This is that area. So it's kind of like if you're one of those Taurus people who is not that comfortable with commitment, maybe you have a lot of Gemini or other energy that kind of supports that, and you really love your freedom. There are some of those Taurus people like that. You may kind of surrender to somebody that you really love and feel like, hey, I do want to spend the rest of my life with you, and you might be making wedding plans. So it really does depend on the individual. For those who have it in the 8th house, this can be a profound experience of some kind of obsession or addiction being taken away from you, almost like magic. 8th house can be the house of magic. As the area of transformation, eclipses are change agents. So you have this transit of transformation in the planet of transformation. So that should be very, that should really assist in your, even like your spiritual growth. This is the area of metaphysics. It's a very kind of a private, esoteric area. You may, maybe it's in the form of some kind of a spiritual download that gives you insight into some of the things that you've struggled with. This is the house of the shadow. So that can bring up things too. I mean, it can be very emotional. This is Scorpio's house, very intense, but very healing ultimately. And on the 29th, we have a Mercury retrograde at 24 degrees of Gemini in that second house of earned income. If there are any, snafus with money, or, the check's in the mail, you don't receive it, just understand that this is when this is happening. But also just with your cash flow, if there's any kind of disruption with that, just realize that it's temporary. Don't freak out. Not to say that that's going to happen to everyone, but just whenever there's these transits through any kind of money sector or work sector, that can help. If there's some kind of short range cut off or lessening slowdown, that can help you understand that it's just going to be temporary. You can be rethinking how you make money. This can also be for people who are, working currently, that you're negotiating your salary, renegotiating it, maybe having, asking for a raise, and this coming up. Or I think, I think it would be more about rethinking how you make money, because you also have the, you have Saturn in the 10th house, so that could go along with that for some reason. So by all means, be very mindful about your career and money in the second half of May. And what I mean by mindful is, if something in the outer world is kind of calling to you to get your attention about things. And it could be like coming from different directions. Just be aware, because sometimes these things don't happen the way that we think they're going to happen. And yet they are here for us to look at. And maybe it's time to change your course of action. And did you ever hear that Taurus people can be stubborn sometimes? Yeah. Who would have thunk it, huh? Don't resist doing something different just because you're afraid of, change or the unknown, because you may see the writing on the wall. You may you may have seen trends in a certain direction that tell you that something is on its way out. And yet you just counter it with some other type of thought because you just don't want to deal with it. But anyway, this is only going on for a few weeks, and then you will probably have come to some kind of conclusion of how you want to proceed. So that's what I have for you, Taurus. I hope that you enjoyed this. If you would like a personal reading, the link is below. Take care. Bye.